Another How To Plus Q&A event. My name is Anna-Marie Fanthorpe and I'll be your host today. Welcome back to another Digital Boost Q&A. Today we have two returning guests. I'm really excited to have them on, Jason Tiller and Amanda Livingston, I presume, is here. Amanda's from Quickbound Brown Fox and Jason is from Rocketspark. And we're going to be talking about authentic brand storytelling. So Amanda is an expert at copywriting and she came on and did a session with us in the past about the kind of the basics of copywriting. It was a really fabulous session. You can check it out. Jason was there as well, assisting and just like adding in some extra flavor to the session. You can check out those past sessions in the In Case You Missed It section on the Digital Boost main page. After you log in, scroll down and you'll see it on the right hand side. Just go ahead and scroll through and have a look at all the sessions we've run to date. Now, you might be streaming with us on YouTube, you might be with us on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and we would love to get your questions answered today. And you can do that by just popping them in the comment section or chat features, depending on the platform that you are streaming from. If you're with us on Zoom, please use the chat function or the Q&A function. I'm sure that we'll be taking questions throughout the session. So just pop them in there. Somebody might be sitting there a little bit too scared to type. And so you'll be doing them a favor by asking your question. We want these sessions to be bespoke to you and your business. So without any further ado, Amanda, Jason, thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you back on Digital Boost. I always try to reel you back in because I know that you always present quality information. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Very kind.
It's very nice. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to this session and I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that everything's running in the background. So I'm going to turn my camera off and let you guys drive. But I'll be here. Questions throughout, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Very nice. Well, good morning, Amanda.
Good morning, Jason.
Thank you, everyone, for coming along. It is a real pleasure to be back here. And today, Amanda is going to be driving the boat, which is going to be marvelous. She won't tell you, but she's got a wonderful amount of experience and skills in this area. And you've tuned into a really great session. So,
no pressure.
Shall we crack into it?
I'll try not to disappoint. I just wanted to thank people for tuning in. I realize running a business is a very busy time, and I thank you just for taking the time out to come and have a look. So I'll try and give as much value as possible today through this. So we're going to be talking about authentic brand storytelling today. And the reason for this is just to kind of help you to get a bit more confident talking about and marketing your own business. I wanted just to kind of start off taking a quick look at what we're seeing out there. There's a bit of a trend towards brand storytelling. And I wanted just to kind of show you a couple of quick examples that you have probably seen on TV and in advertising. So you may have seen the ASB adverts. There's a whole series of them. ASB have created these characters, Ben and Amy. Have you seen these, Jason?
I have,
yeah. I think most people have. Basically, they have these characters that represent some customers of the bank. They're kind of young and they go camping, they go to the supermarket, they buy their first home together. They do what normal people do. And ASB has created a whole series of these ads following the Ben and Amy story and the role that ASB plays in their lives. You may have also seen an ad by Sea Lord, which is a bit of a tearjerker. Some people, myself may possibly included, may have had a small lump in the throat watching that one. Last Place Lucy is that campaign, and it's about a father and daughter, and it follows their story through. Lucy has some struggles at school and is being teased because she can't swim quickly, and it's about the father supporting her through that. And so Sea Lord and their products play a small part in that story too. So while we can't, have the big budgets that these corporations have and stuff, what we can do as small businesses is observe what they've been doing and take away some of the lessons. They put a huge amount of resources into these campaigns, and so they've gone through the whole testing phase and everything. So if they're doing something that we can see is working very well, and these ads have been voted New Zealand's most favourite, we can take away some lessons and we can adapt those to suit our small business situation and budget.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about why the way that they've presented these, rather than focusing on the product, is their focus for these ads, aren't we?
Exactly. So banks would typically, several years ago, you would see an ad for a bank that would talk about low interest rates, which that's talking about the feature. It would talk about how that can put some extra money in your pocket, which is the benefit. But what they're doing now is they're moving one step further into the transformation. So they're talking more about the actual day-to-day difference that these products and services can make in people's lives. So why are they choosing to use storytelling? The reason is because story is very sticky. As this quote, which should be on your screen, says, "Tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me a truth and I'll believe, but tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever." So that's an Indian proverb. And it's talking about exactly that. Facts and figures are all very well, but they don't really stick and they don't really connect with people. When we wrap those facts up in a story format, the studies have shown that people are more likely to remember the information that they've been given and remember it for longer. It's
because it touches different parts of your brain. Different parts of your brain light up versus a fact versus a story. I don't know. I should have dug a bit deeper. Look at that.
Well, lucky for you, Jason. I'm certainly not a scientist, but I can give you a really very quick and overly simplified probably explanation of what's actually happening there. So story is actually part of our DNA. We have literally evolved to be receptive to story, and that's because throughout human history, story is how we learn. It's how we pass on really important information about, way back, about how to find food, how to avoid danger. It really became part of our survival. So story was very important. Indigenous populations have managed to map out entire continents by using story and song, which is essentially story set to a tune. So our brains have literally evolved to be receptive to story. This is a very overly simplified version of what's going on in there, but essentially the main two hormones involved here are dopamine, which we know as the feel-good hormone, and that's responsible for things like attention and focus, memory, and motivation. Oxytocin, which we know as the love hormone, it's exactly the same hormone that's released when a mother breastfeeds her baby. It's to do with bonding, empathy, trust, and generosity. And these hormones have an effect on the brain, which results in increased interest, our decision-making capacity is increased, and it prompts us to take action. So if you think about what we're tasked to do as marketers, we want to get the attention of the customer, we want to build trust with the customer, and we want to move them along to actually taking action, buying our product, or engaging us to give them some service. You can see why this is a very powerful marketing tool because they align very, very well. So I just wanted to kind of talk about what brand storytelling is, because there's quite a lot of talk about it at the moment, but I think we just want to maybe focus first of all on some of the terminology there. And first of all, just what we actually understand about a brand. What does a brand mean? And I really like this quote because I think for our purposes, it's a very good way of thinking about what a brand is. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Essentially, what it means is that a brand for a company or a business is the same as a reputation for a person or individual. Brand story is slightly different from brand storytelling, and I just wanted to kind of make the distinction between the two as well. So our brand story, that can include the origin story of your brand, so how you got started, what was the history of your brand. The history of your brand is not always 100% interesting. And if it's not, then, there are certainly other things that we can focus on that are part of the brand story too. The reasons for the existence of your brand over and above just making a profit. Most business owners have not generally gone through the massive commitment of starting their own business just to turn a profit. There are generally lots of other reasons and drivers behind it. And those can be really, really interesting stories to tell.
Yeah, and they can be as simple as wanting to spend more time with your family. It doesn't have to be huge.
Yeah, you don't have to be, setting out to change the world in some big way. You could be setting out to change your own world in some unique way. So, that's a really good place to look for story too. Your brand promise, what I mean by that is all the things that you are promising your audience and your customers. What can they expect from you long term that you're willing to commit to forever? These are other things that are very important and people want to know about too. And then also the role that you're going to play in the lives of your customers. How are you going to help them achieve their goals too? So once we've kind of got some of that information together, we can build a brand story from that. Brand storytelling is slightly different because what we're doing with brand storytelling is we're telling, first of all, recognizing some of the stories that surround our brand, things that are happening with the brand, what journey we're on, who we're choosing to work with as suppliers, all of these things. And it's telling lots of different stories. It's not just one story that we're going to be repeating over and over again. We're telling lots of little smaller stories that all support the brand story to back it up essentially and to show that it's true.
So here at Rocketspark, we do a lot of brand storytelling. We talk about our customers, we talk about their successes, we talk about our team members, their experience and their histories and how they're helping Rocketspark be the business that it is today, all with a mind to deliver a lot of wholesome storytelling content around the advantages of us as a business. Could you consider testimonials as a form of brand storytelling?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're a very important part of brand storytelling too, because something that's more powerful than you saying how great you are is someone else saying how great you are. So testimonials and case studies are definitely a really important part of that. That's right.
There's always going to be a balance between too much product and not enough story, isn't there, though?
That's right. Yeah. And actually, that was one thing that I was going to mention too, is that, the rise of brand storytelling. You guys at Rocketspark have actually employed someone in the title of storyteller, haven't you?
That's right. We do have a storyteller. And because we're at a scale and size where we're able to do that. Some businesses not so much.
Yeah, that's right. So for smaller businesses, we can't employ a storyteller to do it for us. We have to get our heads around telling our own story. We can tell our stories not just through our words, but also using images and video. Visual brand storytelling is another important tool that we have in our toolbox. So just running through, the kind of things that we want to talk about as being part of our brand story. We want to talk about who you are. A lot of small businesses are, there's one person, you are the business. And in that instance, really so many of your own values and your own personality will come through very strongly within the business. So we do see a lot of small business owners sort of hiding behind the business in a way. They've created a business and it can be very focused on product or the service or, what was happening out there. But if you are small, just one or two people or, a very small team, people actually do want to know who they're dealing with. They want to see your face. They want to know about you and what you stand for. So it is actually important to kind of show up for your brand.
Because a lot of other small businesses like doing business with small businesses because of that personal element. Knowing the owner of the business is an important value for them.
That's right. So talking also about what you care about within and outside of your business, what's important to you, what are you focused on? And again, sort of like, it kind of all intermingles a little bit with maybe some of the reasons why you've started. You want to talk about what you do, not just the product or the service that it is that you're offering, but how do you do it differently, or how do you do it better? Because generally it would be very unusual for a business to kind of go out there and for there to be no competition. There are usually a few other people around or businesses around that can offer very similar services and products to you. So you want to really drill down on what it is that you're doing differently. And sometimes that can mean, you're competing on price or the product itself, the way it's delivered. There's many different ways that you can differentiate yourself. The why, we've talked about that big why. What is the big sort of purpose behind what you're doing? People love hearing about the backstory and sort of, people do want to join you on that journey. Talking about how you help people, again, trying to not focus too much on product and service, but also really digging into those transformations that people can achieve through working with you, and talking about what you stand for, that sort of bigger picture stuff.
So a good question here, and I think it's really relevant to what you're saying. And it says, Kia ora, what's the difference between what you care about and what you stand for? Great question.
Yep. So there's a quite subtle differences. All of these things, I find when I'm working with people, I ask the same question in several different ways, because people have different ideas about what each of these things means. And we could get the marketing textbook out and we could look at vision and purpose and mission and all of those things and get the kind of textbook definition of them. But at the end of the day, we want to just focus in on what you're about. And for me, I try to just sort of get that information out by asking the same question in several different ways. I'm just popping on, actually the next slide is getting into what you stand for. So this might answer the question. Just a couple of examples. So we've got some companies here and we're talking about what it is that they sell, but then also what it is that they stand for. So the Body Shop obviously is a very, very successful multinational business, and what they sell is cosmetics, but what they stand for and what they have always stood for is the empowerment of women, ethical trading, and they've always been very strongly against animal testing. So they've become very well known for those values that they hold really dear, and so those values kind of guide the way that that business operates. It guides the way that the products are developed. It guides the way that the products are made and where they're made and by whom they're made. Patagonia, while they sell outdoor gear, they are for conservation and radical transparency. And what I mean by that is that they have chosen to be radically honest. So they started this massive debate by saying that, because a lot of clothing suppliers talk about sustainability, and Patagonia said there is no such thing in fashion as sustainability anymore. It's just actually not a sustainable industry anymore. Yeah. So we're doing what we think is more true is conservation. And we're going to operate our business in a way where we focus very heavily on conservation, because we know that we can't meet those standards of sustainability to be able to say honestly that we're sustainable.
Was that part of Patagonia that actually took colors out of their line because they weren't sustainable colors to create? Or was that Kathmandu? I feel like one of these companies, they did a thing where they were producing clothes, but then they actually took those colors out because the colors, to make the colors, it was too toxic for the environment or something like that. So I guess that would be like an example of that. Yeah. Conservative kind of thing, like looking at how do we produce things and whether or not it's sustainable to the environment, and then going, well, sorry, we don't offer like light blue now because it's, it just doesn't work for the environment. And we know that that's not maybe the best for our customers, but this is what we're all about. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. Holding true to those values and, really seeing them through, even if it is a little bit tough, they're not going to compromise those values, because those are the stated values within the company too. You know, they've made, and going again back to brand promise, making a promise about that you will not compromise on these values. You'll always do the right thing in these areas, and you can be trusted to do that. So yeah, when times get tough and it looks like, you know, maybe a little shortcut or, you know, an exception to the rule might work quite well for you and for your customers. Having the strength and the integrity to stick with them like that can be really powerful. And you know, when trust is such a big part of the equation when we're doing business with other people, yeah, staying true, holding the line on these things is vital.
Love it.
Yeah, for sure. Our last example there, one or two of you in the audience may be slightly familiar with this brand. I don't know if anyone likes chocolate, but yeah, Whittaker's, they stand for quality, fun, and sustainability. So I wanted just to make the point too, it doesn't have to be pious, it doesn't have to be boring and sort of, you know, you don't have to save the world with your values all the time. It's perfectly okay to have fun as something that you stand for. And you know, obviously, depending on your product or your service, there's no reason why fun and enjoyment and all of these things can't be part of your mix too.
And the beauty of defining all of these things is that it not only becomes how you present yourself to the world, but it's also your internal guiding principles as well. You talk about strategic decision making, and if you've set these standards already, it makes your strategic decision making quite easy. Is this thing I'm about to do, is that conservative in terms of the conservation side of things? Is it radically transparent? If it doesn't tick those boxes, well, then the answer is no. And if it does, the answer is yes. So they're really, really great things not to just tell the world about, but also to use as an internal guiding principle too.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think it would be useful, you know, sometimes, I don't know if you use this as a technique, but just wondering if it would apply here. Sometimes it's really hard for me to define what I do stand for, but I know what I don't stand for.
Yeah.
Do you ever use that as some way to guide you?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Again, like the example with Body Shop, you know, they're against animal testing. So yeah, absolutely start if you're really struggling, and it can be a bit of a struggle sometimes to sort of sit and wonder what it is that you stand for, and you know, start with what you don't stand for, start with what you're against, and you can start sort of narrowing it down, and then things will sort of be clear. And again, you shouldn't feel under too much pressure. And if you have a business already, you'll probably find you're already doing some things. It could be anything. It could be that you deliberately choose to spend a bit more on the toilet paper for your office because it's made of bamboo and not trees, or you know, there'll be all these little things that you'll just kind of say, oh yeah, actually, you know, we are doing some things. Or you know, you've chosen a certain supplier over another one because you trust the quality is much better, or whatever, and so you refuse to compromise on the quality of ingredients in your product. So yeah, have a look at what you're already doing as well. You'll probably dig a few things up.
Awesome.
Thanks. So we just touched a little bit on strategy there, and it is so important because we can't just go out there sort of randomly telling stories. I mean, well, we can, but we're not going to get as much traction. If you have a bit of a framework set up with strategy first, it's really the way to go. So to do that, it's really worthwhile just taking a little bit of time, because, and even if you are an existing business, you've maybe been going for a couple of years, and even if you've sort of gone through a process like this in the past, you know, you don't need Jason and I to tell you that the last 18 months, a lot has changed. A lot has changed in many different ways in the labor market, in, you know, products availability, shipping. A lot of things have been affected by COVID and all the issues.
That's right.
There's a lot of businesses have been impacted by it. So things have changed quite a lot. And so it's worth maybe just taking the time out to have another little relook at things. So starting with yourself, we've just kind of gone through all of those things about, you know, figuring out what's important to you and where you stand on things and what your brand story is. It's going to be very difficult to sort of like convince other people if you're not very clear on your own story for yourself. So we want to start with that with us. And then we want to have a little think about, you know, our brand voice and personality too. And again, for small businesses, that's very often kind of dictated by the business owner because they're so closely linked. if you are the person who's the figurehead of your own business, you're the one that's dealing with people day in, day out, really your personality and the way that you deal with people kind of is the business's personality too. So embrace that, and think about the real positives that you can take from that. And as you grow and you have other people, it's really good to get them on board too, because if they're going to be representing your business, you have certain sort of standards in place about how you talk to your audience and to your customers. So once we're kind of clear on who we are and where we are at and how we want to talk to people, we want to have another look at our audience, which again, there may have been some changes and shifts in that audience over the last little while. So have another look at them. What are they doing? What are their values? What's important to them? Because some of those things may have changed.
I just wanted to just say, in terms of like your audience changing, is that you might used to be able to go to trade shows in Poland every year. Obviously, that's probably not so much the case anymore. So your audience has probably changed quite significantly to probably a much more local market, for example.
Yeah, that's right. And when you're reaching people that maybe perhaps you could have reached in person before, now, how are you reaching them? Is it email marketing? Is it through LinkedIn, Instagram? Where are they hanging out? All these kind of things may have shifted and changed too. People who previously enjoyed Facebook, a lot of people are shifting more to LinkedIn. So have another look at those sort of things too, and so we're clear on how and where we're talking to people. So once we've sort of had a look at both of those things, we want to kind of move on and have another look at the market too, because again, there've been probably changes in the competitive marketplace. Which of your competitors have done well through these challenges? Which of your competitors have not done well? And have a look at the reasons why and why not. You could definitely learn something from that. And we also just want to have a look and see, what are they doing now? What's their offering? How are they doing their social media and marketing campaigns and stuff? Not because we want to sort of have a look around and think, oh yeah, that looks pretty good, we want to do that. But what we're looking for are the gaps. We want to sort of find out, what do we think our customers want to hear that is not being said by our competitors? We're looking for those kind of opportunities.
That's right. And what we find, especially for smaller businesses trying to tackle bigger fish, like, for example, if you've started a search engine and you've called it the Digital Boost search engine, and you're going up against Google, you're not going to have a great time if you try and take them head on. So Amanda's point about finding those gaps, finding the niches where they haven't managed to nail, is a great opportunity for you. Maybe a little bit of homework is you could Google the phrase long tail SEO for your websites and do a bit of reading on that. That's
a good idea. And actually, Digital Boost will probably have another session on that subject too that people can check out. So once we've kind of done that groundwork, then we're ready to kind of move forward and tell our story, because we're really clear on the kind of messages that we, our most important messages that we want to get across. I just wanted to say that it is really important to tell your story, because again, like I mentioned, some business owners do hide behind the business a little bit, and and they feel uncomfortable sort of talking about the business. Either they feel they don't want to be blowing their own trumpet, or they're not quite sure what to say, or there's a lot of barriers to people really fronting up and doing the brand storytelling that they should be doing. But if you find yourself in that kind of situation, it's really important to know that if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And what I mean by that is that if you don't sort of get out there and represent your brand in the way that you should be, what you're doing is you're leaving a vacuum and a gap for others to tell your story for you. They can talk about, it leaves a room for your competitors to talk about their products and services, to say what they want about your products and services, really. So you do need to be a voice for your own brand.
That's right. Yeah, and you'll be surprised at how many people don't even own their own Google My Business listing, which is a good place to start.
That's right. Yeah, that is a great place to start. And you're right. If you have gone through the process of getting a website set up, the very next thing you want to do is set up your Google My Business listing. It gives you a really good opportunity to put the most important information in there about being found in terms of your location, the services that you offer. You can add pricing information. There really is a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm sure that Digital Boost will also have another session on that topic.
Oh,
too.
do we have Google My Business?
Oh yeah,
we've got a number of sessions on Google My Business.
Fantastic.
We've got ones for tourism. We've got ones for hospitality. We've got a session from Google on Google My Business. So if you are, depending on your industry, we've got Q&As that we've done for you. Check them out in case you missed it. And if you don't feel like looking, just contact support@digitalboost.co.nz. Sorry, support team, and they will send you the links. The links to those sessions, so you don't even have to search. We will send them right to you, and you can get a good look at them. So yeah, just saying.
Fantastic.
Very good.
So yeah, if you're still not convinced, I wanted to just sort of run you through some benefits of getting out there and telling your own story. First of all, it really helps you to differentiate. And we've talked about, that competitive landscape. There are other people out there offering, similar products and services. So by getting out there and talking about what you do and really focusing on what you do differently or better, it helps you to differentiate. Also talking about your big why, it's probably not the same as other people's motivations, and people are really interested to hear those stories. So that's a great benefit of brand storytelling. It also helps you to find your tribe, and not just customers, but also it could be investors, it could be staff. You're speaking to different audiences, but it's it's important that you manage the reputation of your business through a bunch of different audiences. If someone is hearing some really great stories about what you're doing and your purpose and things, that's helping you to recruit. And staffing is a bit of an issue at the moment for many people. We're hearing that over and over again. So attracting the right employees is very important too.
That's right.
Humanizing. Jason talked about how small business owners like to buy from other small business owners. People like to buy from people. People generally don't really want to buy from a faceless corporation if there's another alternative that's they've got a more human face and more personality to it. Brand storytelling helps you to humanize your brand in that way too. That's
right. And just a quick question there is, we see a lot of websites, and we see a lot of on websites. We do this, and our team is this, and it's generally one person. What's your advice on that?
My take is, if you are a one-man band or one-woman band, one-person band, by saying we, again, I think trust being such a big part of the equation when people are doing business with other people, you can just be honest about it. You can say it's just you. That's absolutely fine. You don't need to make yourself look like a bigger business. You actually run some risks there too, because if you kind of make it sound like you are a team and stuff, and then people get to actually doing business with you and find out that it's just you, they sort of maybe feel like a little bit duped by that initial. We always want consistency. So if on your website, we want that to match really well with what people experience in real life. So that would be my take.
Yeah, that's good advice. Very cool.
Unity, if you do have a team, people generally don't just show up to work to get the paycheck, and they want the paycheck. Don't stop giving them the paycheck. But they have other reasons for showing up at work too. Hopefully they're interested in the kind of work that they're doing, but also feeling like they're part of something a little bit bigger is really powerful and very motivating for staff. So if you are able to use brand storytelling to really bring those staff on board and make them feel like they are part of something bigger, it creates a really good team spirit as well. I know that that's something that you guys do very well here at Rocketspark too.
Yeah, it's something that we focus on for sure. And you'll see that a lot of our storytelling is, it's about our customers, but we also talk a lot about our team and our values. So yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah. it helps you to communicate value. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to be competing on price if you can help it. You want to be able to prove value. If you're competing on price, it can quite often end up a bit of a race to the bottom, really.
That's right.
So if you can really, for instance, if your product is maybe considered by the market to be like a little bit expensive, use brand storytelling to demonstrate the value in what you're providing. If it's a product, maybe you could talk about the way that you choose to use the highest possible quality ingredients and that you won't compromise on that. Allow people to develop an understanding of what's behind the price, and so focus more on value rather than price.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, just taking ownership of your story. We just don't ever want to allow that vacuum to appear where you're allowing the market or other people to tell your story for you. So I would say just back yourself, really. As small business owners, there's so much to do and so much to think about. And it can be quite easy to sort of, shy away from telling your own story. But you do have good stories. I've never met anyone who doesn't have some good stories to tell. It's just about sort of uncovering them, recognizing them, and then telling them. So when we come to actually telling our story, sometimes people just don't know where to begin. They don't know how to get started with the actual writing of what it is that they want to say, whatever message they want to get across. So I wanted just to kind of point out that while we can use words, and obviously that's my area of business as a copywriter, visual brand storytelling is also very powerful too. Particularly, you've got Instagram, which is a really visual platform. And lots of small businesses are using that really effectively and building really great connections and networks through Instagram. So it is more difficult for service-based businesses, although I'm a service-based business and I've actually had lots of inquiries through Instagram too. But yeah, it works really well for product, and you can do really well with great images, and we also have access to video now too, which is hugely popular.
I just had a question. The majority of businesses that are registered through Digital Boost are service-based businesses. I mean, that's our highest bracket of businesses that register. So since you're in that service industry and you're using platforms like Instagram, can you give us an example of how your Instagram might differ from, like a product Instagram, so that, we understand how that could work for us?
Sure. Something that's worked really well for me on Instagram is just my North Star with it really has just been to provide value. So if you have a look at my account, there'll be some, musings on life and whatever, but generally it's about providing value. So a lot of my posts are about giving advice and tips and, things that will really help my audience. So for most service-based businesses, that is really the way to go. And don't be scared that you're giving away too much. The most helpful businesses win, which is one of my posts, but it's true.
There's a Harvard Business quote, I think, which is, "He who educates the market owns the market." Forget about the he part, but the whoever owns the market, whoever educates the market owns the market, which I think is a really good.
I love that. That's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, that's lovely, because I think we do, especially I speak to a lot of small businesses and they're afraid to give away their secrets because that's what makes them special, But so is there a line with that where I'll give away this, but don't give, everything away? Or do you just kind of feel like, no, it's all good because you are you, and even if they knew your secret or whatever, they wouldn't be able to do it the way that you do it? Is that kind of the idea behind that? Or
that's really true. Yeah. There are so much personality is involved when you're working as a service-based business. And we just had a chat before we came on air. We were talking about other copywriters out there and how there's just such a big variety of personalities. So for me, if I am passing on an inquiry that's maybe not a good fit for me, or I don't have capacity for, I have other copywriters that I can that I know, I've gotten to know over time and that I can pass on, but I'll never just automatically pass an inquiry on to any particular one of them, because it's about matching those personalities. Mm-hmm. Some people are really nurturing in the way that they do things. Some people are very energetic and high energy sort of people. And so, there's a good fit, and that is really, really important when you're dealing in a kind of personal service capacity.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, back to your point, Murray. Yes, you can tell me how to fly a plane, but when it actually comes to the implementation of flying the plane, it's a whole different kettle of fish.
Great, that's great, and it's a great way to. I love a metaphor, I'll tell you. So I use too many, to be honest. But I love that, because that just gave me a perfect visual, and I love how you put that, Amanda, as well. It's just like, yeah, okay, got it. Because I think we all do fear that a little bit. So yeah. I feel a little bit more.
No one does quite like you. You could line up 10 service providers. They're all going to do it slightly differently. They're all going to have slightly different ideas about the best way to do it. And even from client to client, you're going to do things in a slightly different way too, because you do what fits best for that business, and it's highly tailored. Hopefully that's how you're operating. So no, I don't think you need to be too worried about giving too much away. I think be generous with your knowledge, and it gives you a really good opportunity to demonstrate that, and again to build the trust that you need to enter into a working relationship with someone.
Awesome.
Yes, we were talking about images and video, which we've looked at ASB, we've looked at TV ads, all that sort of thing. And again, as small business owners, that's not what we're going to do. That's not part of our toolbox. But Facebook and Instagram, they give us this amazing opportunity to reach people that we previously couldn't reach. And we can do that through video and images and everything too. Video is very powerful because you get, although I hate it personally myself, I'm not very good at doing it myself, but it does work very, very well. If you can have the confidence to get on there, it's a really great tool.
That's right.
So just in terms of sitting down and actually kind of like writing out your story, if you literally have a blank page and you just are not sure where to start, just go right back to basics. So the most basic storyline plot is literally the beginning, middle, and end. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. So have a think about what it is that you want to say. It could be that you're describing a problem that you solved. So we talked a little bit about testimonials before, and this is something that I see is that testimonials quite often start in the middle. They start with, the solution and then how good it was afterwards, but they don't start with the before, and including the before turns it into a story arc, which is sort of better received. So start by explaining what the problem is, how things were before. The middle part is how you solved it, and the end is the success or transformation that was achieved. So if you just kind of write those things out, you've got your basic framework. Then go back, and then you can start to fill in some of the details. So you want to start with a hook, which is designed to sort of grab attention straight up. Something that's really kind of interesting or a little bit different to stop people from scrolling, basically. And then every story has a little bit of tension. We just need to sort of make the person feel like they want to know what comes next. That's enough tension to sort of get that dopamine hit that we talked about earlier. And then, solving the problem is the climax of the story, and the resolution is what happens at the end. So just sort of, I know it seems really simple, and it is very simple. It's not rocket science. But it's just quite a nice framework to kind of get you started, at least anyway, and get your thoughts down on paper. The next story framework that I wanted to show you, so Pixar have made 24 movies, and anyone out there who has kids has probably seen many of them. And basically all of these movies follow the same plot. So the characters change, the places change, the ideas change, but they all follow this plot. And for us, in a business sense, we can sort of take this series of ideas that we know works really well and adapt it for business use. Origin stories, this can be quite a good fit for some of those. So basically it goes like this: once upon a time, and that's where we sort of introduce the character or characters. Every day we talk about how things are. Then one day something changes. So in terms of, if you're writing the origin story of your business here, you can talk about, how things were before you had your idea to start your own business. What was happening before then? How were things going then? And then what was it that changed? Did someone inspire you? Did you lose your job? There's always some kind of trigger, and we want to sort of talk about that. And then because of that trigger, then you can talk about, the struggles that you've gone through to set up your business, because it very rarely happens really smoothly. There's usually a few challenges along the way. So talk about those until finally a resolution is reached, which is you launching the business. So while it might seem silly to kind of, look at kids' movies and for inspiration, basically all we're doing here is we're just borrowing the framework to set out our own ideas in a structured way. We can also adapt that a little bit too. We can turn this around just by changing up a couple of things, and we can turn this into a structure that works really well for case studies. So you can say, once upon a time, in this instance, we're not talking about ourselves starting a business, we're talking about a customer who has a problem that you've managed to solve for them. So you're talking about your character intro and talking about your customer and where they were before you helped them. Talk about what they were struggling with, and then the thing that changes is obviously you coming in to help them with that problem with your product or your service. So that the character is enabled to do something else. So we can talk about, what was that thing that changed and what have they now been enabled to achieve or do, which is the resolution part of it. So I hope that makes sense. And again, we're not writing movies and we're not writing scripts or anything, but we're just using a proven, powerful story framework to get our own ideas out of our head and onto paper, where we can start to tell our own stories.
And they don't have to be novels either, do they?
No, they don't by any means. It can literally just, you're starting literally with just a couple of sentences, and then you can build it out. So that's sort of your story. And once you have a story, you can actually sort of use different parts of it too. Like if for a little Instagram post, you might want to kind of condense that story down. And then if you're using it as a case study, or as a separate kind of post on your website or a blog, you can expand it out. So yeah, this is just really about getting ideas out of your head and onto paper. The third framework that I'm just going to really briefly touch on too is quite useful when you're writing websites. It's a really good structure just to, again, get the ideas on paper when you're writing website content. So it starts with, it's adapted from the hero's journey, and it starts with the hero. And the most important thing to know is that we are not the hero, the customer is the hero. So you can put your cape to one side. And then we talk about, and again, just list these things as bullet points to start with, and then you're going to fill out and build out your story from there. So who is your hero? Let's kind of describe effectively your ideal customer. Talk about the challenge or obstacle that they're facing that your product and service can fix. We introduce ourselves. We are the guide in this story, and we talk about the kind of skills and experience that we have that can help the character through that challenge. The plan is the way that we're going to help them to fix that problem. We're presenting them with a plan of action. Our call to action is for this, this is where we sort of talk about, isn't it time that you fix this, like you stop living like this or stop putting up with this? It's time to actually make a change and do something about it. And then we sort of really gently touch on what failure might look like if they don't fix the problem, which can just be as simple as things staying the same. And then we want to really vividly describe what success looks like. So again, like coming into using testimonials and talking about other people's experiences and the kind of transformations that they've achieved through working with you in the past. So if you're interested in this one in particular, the last one, you can read Donald Miller's book called Story Brand, which delves into this a lot more and runs through the whole process. We've just borrowed a little bit for today's purposes. At the end of the day, you just don't want to get bogged down with things seeming a bit complicated or any of that sort of stuff. Just keep it simple. Simple stories work well because they're just easy to remember. There's not too many details to get, allow confusion to creep in. We want it to be meaningful. So again, adding meaningful and personal, adding those kind of personal connections, turn it around. What's in this for the customer? Why do I want to tell this story? That's an important question, but the more important question is, why does the customer need to hear this story? So have a think about that. We want to add a little bit of emotion if it's appropriate. Again, going back to that sort of hormonal stuff that happens in the brain. We want empathy and trust and all of those things from it. And ultimately, it must be authentic. We're not running around just making up stories. All of our stories should be authentic and true and be a really good representation.
It's just so easy to get caught out these days. Simple Google search could make it all unravel. Yeah. And there's no need. Again, you do have stories. They'll come to you, and I'll give you some examples of where you can find them. So origin story, we've talked about, the story of how your business came about and your journey to having that business. You can talk about your success stories. Usually these will be your customers' success stories, but it is also okay to talk about your own success stories too. Just not too many of them. Failure stories, we definitely want to cover these too, because vulnerability and, authenticity, they're definitely part of storytelling. When you're telling a failure story, it's always a good idea to kind of finish up with the lesson that had been learned from that failure. So you can say, yeah, we screwed up and we messed up that time, but this is what we've learned from it, and this is how we'll do better next time. Or we learn through failure, so share those learnings with your audience. Collaboration stories are good too, because they give you an opportunity to talk about the things that you've been able to do for your customers that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. They also help you to reach other audiences. So if you're collaborating with someone else, share that story together, because they have access to your audience and you have access to their audience by doing that. Staff stories, again, we're talking about how putting your people front and center is really important. So if you do have staff, introduce them, talk about their skills and what they bring to the table. Supplier stories are really good at, it's a good way to reinforce our values, because we can talk about why we picked a particular supplier and how that fits really well with our values. Testimonials, obviously, talking, it's really powerful for potential customers to hear from existing or past customers about successes that they've had with dealing with you. Nostalgic stories, those kind of throwbacks, look at how far we've come, all these sort of things. They can be really interesting to people as well. Yeah. And then, underdog stories, moments where you thought you were going to fail with something, but you triumphed. These can be quite powerful, emotional stories as well. Little micro moments. Stories are literally everywhere. I was talking to a client last week who said that she walked into the break room first thing in the morning and one of her staff was singing and was like super happy. And she said, "Oh, what's going on with you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm so excited because my favorite client's coming in today." And, that was it. That had made her day. And I just thought, what a cool little story that, just to be able to sort of tell that, like a quick little Instagram story or something about it. It shows that your staff are really engaged and that they love the customers that they're dealing with, and that you've built these amazing relationships. And so even just little moments are good to look at too. Customer stories, sharing user generated content
to, if someone has used your service or product and posted about it, then share that, and maybe add a few more details about the kind of success that they've achieved or why they enjoyed working with you.
Really authentic user-generated content.
Yeah. Throwbacks and looking to the future. Take people on that journey with you. So once we have, it's about recognizing these stories, just sort of realizing that all the things that are happening around us are these little mini stories that we can tell. So we can tell them everywhere. We can use them on our website, social media, email marketing, blogs, internal communications, again, because we want to keep our staff really engaged with what we're doing too and up to date. Staff training materials, pictures and case studies. Recruitment ads, really important as well, because not just the people who you're attracting to come and work for you, but everyone else is seeing those recruitment ads too. And they're all helping to build a picture about what you and your brand are about.
That's right.
In person, it's really good to have a few little stories in your back pocket about your business, just for social occasions and when you're networking and things too. And on podcasts as well, people are more and more appearing on podcasts, and it's good to have some stories rather than just sort of have bullet points to talk about. So we want to be sharing those stories. We can, again, use our words, use images, use our video, get on stories and stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and just share in the moment, behind the scenes type things too. And also empower your best storytellers. If you do have some staff on your team and you either don't have the time or it's just not your thing, you're really not very good at it, and someone else is really good at it, use them to tell your stories for you. And let your staff feel really empowered to be able to do that once you're clear on all those values.
I really love that. Just talking about those stories as well for Facebook and Instagram. Just a little side tip: when Facebook was on, they were like, think about your posts as your magazine, your editorial, and think about your stories as your reality TV. A lot of people are afraid to post stories because they're worried about looking dumb, or it's not perfect, but in reality, like, that's what this is about. It's not about being perfect on those things. And so just put yourself out there, because that's where people are checking it out. And if you are the kind of person who does want to pre-record, I heard about a cool tool the other day, so I'm just going to throw it out there because I love a good tool tip. It's called Sked Social, and you can actually pre-program your stories for Instagram and Facebook. So you don't have to be on your phone all the time. I mean, that's me. I love to schedule things out and then forget about it for a month. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop that in the chat. Yep, not Skid Social. I'll pop, what I'll do is I'll pop the link right in the chat. Okay, sorry. I'll just go and jump and grab that link.
Yeah, so just to wrap up, like you said, it's about being authentic. And this is why this presentation was called Authentic Brand Storytelling, because authenticity is everything. So I wanted just to touch at the end about getting the balance right, because there does seem to have been like a little bit of a trend towards putting your heart out there and spilling all the details. And as small business owners, it's getting that balance right about what to share and what's personal and what has something to do with the business. So you want to keep it really comfortable for you. Don't feel like you have to share uncomfortable stories, or you feel like you have to sort of drag out some sob story or a terrible failure or something because you kind of see other people doing that. You don't need to do that. We want to get the balance right between confidence and vulnerability. So like you say, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get on there and do your thing. People really like to see the real you. But also, we want to, if you become too vulnerable, if you get too steeped in those kind of really personal stories and stuff, it can have the opposite effect of sort of bringing your competence into question a little bit. So we want to balance it out between confidence and vulnerability when we're sort of, being our authentic selves.
Yeah.
And lastly, just to say, it should always be ethical too. If we have this information and we know that we can actually kind of use story to have an effect on the way that people feel when we're storytelling and stuff, by keeping it authentic, we're not overstepping the mark. We're not abusing the trust. And I really firmly believe that when you come together to work with someone, it should be on a very equal basis, and there should be no sort of manipulation or anything like that. So yeah, just keep it real, keep it ethical, and yeah, tell your stories.
Nice.
Sorry, Anna Marie, I just realized we're a little bit over time, and I'll just really super quickly just say you also don't need to do it all by yourself. There are heaps of resources out there. So for instance, NZT has this Made with Care campaign, which is sort of specifically for food and beverage producers who are have overseas, who are exporting and have an overseas audience, and they have all these resources and everything that can help. You can also, your local Chamber of Commerce might be able to help, professional bodies. You know, there's all different places, so go to them and find out if they have resources that help you, and they can be anything like they can help you with story frameworks, they can help you sort of with tools that will help you sort of uncover your values and those sort of things, and assets, digital assets, programs and things that you can sign up for, and you know, get an extra logo on your product and things. And then obviously the Digital Boost program, which you guys have just done such an amazing job at pulling together all this incredible library of information and knowledge that small business owners can access. So yeah, I would strongly encourage people to keep going through and having a look for things that can help.
Cool. I saw that Sarah dropped it into the chat. I dropped it into the chat as well. Thank you so much for just your expertise. I love the way that you deliver, because it allows us to have actionable steps when we leave these talks. And we did get like some people typing in like a thank you, you know, because really what I think sometimes can be daunting with storytelling is like we get it, but we just don't know where to start. And so that's what I love about the way that what you bring to the table, is that you really give us this place to start, and it doesn't seem so overwhelming, and lots of different ways that we can approach it, because we are all so different in the way that we communicate, you know, and so it's so fantastic. Yeah, lots of thank yous. Very much. Thank you very much. Very helpful indeed. This was a great chat, and we're just really lucky to have you guys on here. We love the team over at Rocketspark, and of course our quick brown fox. Very cute. I love the logo. It's my favorite.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we are out of time. So I am going to be like, we'll just wrap it up, because I'm not seeing any more questions coming through. But I think that the reason why there's no questions is because you just make it so simple to go, and you're like, okay, I can do that. So I hope that we can have you on again sometime. I'm going to push for it, but I know you're really busy. We're all super busy. And so now we're going to have to go and do the work. So I suggest rewatching this if you need to rewatch it, because I think there's lots in here that you might need to check it out again. And oh, thanks, Sarah. And I think that, you know, I just lost my train because I'm reading text and I'm doing that. But I just think this was a really great session. We're really appreciative, and yeah, we want to see your stories, right, guys? So if you guys are out there telling your story, tag us. We would love to see what you guys are doing and getting out of this, out of these sessions. You know, I think as presenters, as facilitators, as people who educate, we love to see when people put things in action. And when you get tagged on LinkedIn or something like that, and you see, oh, this person got that out of the session, and now I can see that they're putting it into action. It's like this real sense of joy. Do you agree?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so tag us. So you can tag Jason, Rocketspark, or you can tag Amanda Livingston, I presume. I always love Quick Brown Fox. You can find both of them on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Definitely with the Rocketspark, definitely with the companies. So do look for them there, connect with them, and share your journey. We want to know your story, you know? That's what it's all about. Thanks, guys. So many thanks coming through. I think that, yeah, just wonderful information, loads of learning. Couldn't write fast enough. Yeah, I get it, Laura. It's totally like that. We're going to have to rewatch, I think, and start to implement. This was amazing. We're all able to receive the presentation notes. Oh, are we able to receive the presentation notes? Is it okay? Do you mind sending in your PowerPoint, Amanda? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be so lovely.
Yep.
We'll
Be generous with your sharing, remember?
Yeah, be generous with your sharing. We will pop it on as a PDF underneath the recording on Digital Boost. So if you're streaming with us on some other platform, get registered, because you can't have these PDFs if you're not registered to the site. So just saying. digitalboost.co.nz. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You
Thanks,
too.
Anna
Thank
Mari.
you so much.
My pleasure. See you next time. See you tomorrow for Google. We're going to do exporting if you're tuning in. It's going to be cool.
What a time.
Yeah. See you guys.